right, guys, happy Friday. Welcome to You've Got Questions, I've Got Answers. And today the question is, hey, I'm mid-transaction. What could happen where my deal would fall apart? Stay tuned, and I'll give you the different scary things that could happen.
You better get fired up.
Guys, good morning. Happy Friday. We're here every single Friday at 11 o'clock where we answer the biggest questions in real estate. And today we're answering the question, man, I'm mid-transaction. What could possibly go wrong where my deal would fall apart? So I'm going to go through a couple, not necessarily probable things, but I'll say they're the most probable things. But in all honesty, with the exception of maybe one of these things, I don't see these things happen a whole lot. In fact, some of these I've never seen, all right? So the first thing I've probably seen happen maybe 2, 3, 4 times ever. It's not very common, but it does happen. And that's getting your deposit in, okay? You've got to get your deposit in. Usually a deposit, at least in Port St. Lucie, is going to be $5,000, $10,000, $20,000, somewhere in that range. Whatever it is, you generally have 3 days, although you can write anything you'd like into a contract, to get it deposited, okay? Sometimes you even have an additional secondary deposit, usually after the inspection period, just to up it and show, greater faith towards that seller. But if you don't get that in, you're out of contract and you could risk losing the property. So that's one thing. I've had people that just haven't submitted their deposit. It's really hard to go after them. Could you? Yes, but you don't have a whole lot of leverage. It's going to cost you time, money, time off the market, other buyers, all kinds of things. So I've never seen anybody go after it, but you could. But you definitely, once you see that the deposit has not been submitted and they don't have a desire to submit it, you're probably out of luck, right? Move on. The next thing is your inspection. Now, this is the biggest one. If I've looked at every deal I've ever had that's fallen apart, I would guess probably 80, 90% of them fell apart due to inspection. There's a lot of reasons it could fall apart during inspection. Literally any reason. They could have found a better home in that period, which is why I don't like 10, 15-day inspections as a seller, right? As a listing agent, I'll give you 5 because I don't want you changing your mind. If you're not serious about this home, then don't bring us your offer. Go shop a little bit more. Come back when we know you're serious. So I want a 5-day inspection on there because people change their minds. So that's one reason, right? Another reason, maybe they see repairs and it just scares them too much. It could be a leaky roof. It could be mold. It could be an AC that doesn't work. Whatever it is, it could just scare them off. All right. Third reason is maybe they see some things and they're okay with them, but they want you, the seller, to work with them either on a credit or in repairing some of these things. And what you want to do, which is maybe nothing, maybe it's meeting them halfway, and what they want, which is everything, they're just not connecting. The two aren't connecting, and you're not doing enough as a seller, at least in the eyes of the buyer. They can walk. They get their deposit back. There's nothing you can do about it, and they get to go look for another home, right? So you lose that buyer. Another one is a loan denial. Now, there's a lot of different reasons for a loan denial. One could be if your debt-to-income ratios change, right? Maybe you go buy a boat or an RV or a four-wheeler. You put 15 grand on a credit card for a vacation, right? Those are all reasons that your numbers could change. And now, boom, you got a denial letter. That's horrible, right? You've got a financing contingency in most offers, at least offers that have a mortgage attached to them. A cash offer is a little bit different. And if you can't get the loan, regardless of whether or not you were a bonehead and getting to that point, you can still get out of that situation. You can get your deposit back. So another one is, what if you lose your job? I've had one scenario where somebody lost the job, but because they were so far along and they had a plan B and everything else, they still got it put together. But I've had a couple where they lost their job and we couldn't keep it together. They lost the deal, right? So the person had to go get another job, get a good, 2 months income under their belt, and then we had to go through the process again. So you really want to make sure you're solid in your job position before you go too far. The next one's probably the worst one. Well, it's definitely the worst one. Death, right? If the buyer dies, well, they can't follow through with the loan. However, if they're going forward, as it could be, I don't want to say a couple like a married couple, but it could be 2 brothers, it could be 2 friends, it could be anything, 2 people or more, right? 3, 4, 5, whatever. And somebody dies, if you can still get approved, right? And you can still meet all the circumstances within the contract, then you're supposed to move forward. However, if somebody dies and that means that, hey, we needed their income, we needed their credit, we needed whatever from them, and now we don't have it, well, you got a done deal, right? Most sellers are going to be understanding in this situation. Of course, it's not great for you, but my gosh, for the buyer, it's even worse, right? It's about as bad as it is as bad as it can get. So death would definitely do it. Non-insurability. So if you've got a roof, this is a big one in Florida, that is maybe 17, 18, 19 years old, 22 years old, especially if it's shingle. and you can't get an inspector to say that there's 5 years left of life on that roof, it's really hard to get insurance. If you can't get insurance and you've got a mortgage, the mortgage is not going to move through. It's going to deny you, and you're not going to be able to get it unless you pay cash, right? If you pay cash, you don't have to get insurance. You can do whatever you want. But if you're getting a mortgage, every single lender is going to want to see that you've got insurance on that property. Another big one that I see, although I've seen it fixed every single time, because the alternative is you're in the same boat. If you've got a bad electrical panel, and I forget what the bad ones are. Challenger. Challenger is, I've heard agents say that they've gotten them through. I've never seen one go through. Every single time you see the word Challenger on your panel, it's going to be tough to sell that home because it's tough to get insurance. I've never seen anybody get insurance. I'm not saying you can't. I'm saying I've never seen it. There are a couple other panels that can be challenging too, but Challenger is the biggest one. And it can be $3,000 to $5,000 to swap that panel out. And the seller's never happy about it. But I always say to the seller, whether I'm the buyer's agent or the listing agent, listen, we're going to drop this buyer, go find another buyer, and we got to tell that buyer the same thing. They're not going to be able to get insurance either, right? And now they're going to say, hey, I want to back out, or I want to wheel and deal. If it's $3,000 to $5,000, I want $8,000 to $10,000 off. So it makes sense for you to come in and get that fixed and keep the current buyer who's interested in your property, who's probably going to give you the best offer. So I've never seen a deal fall apart because of it, because the sellers always want it. Well, wanted is probably a poor choice of words. It's made sense for them to get it done more than letting the deal fall apart. But that is something that could cause a deal to fall apart. Short appraisal is another one, right? If you're buying a home for $400,000 and the appraiser comes in and says, hey, it's worth $380,000, you get a $20,000 shortage there. So either the seller needs to come down $20,000 on price, or you, the buyer, need to come up with $20,000 extra in cash. In addition to your down payment, in addition to your closing costs, you got another $20,000 or some variation thereof, right? Maybe they come down $10,000 and you come up with an extra $10,000 in cash, whatever, but it's got to equal that $20,000. A lot of times I've had really good luck with this. I think I'm 15 for 16 now on these. A lot of times people will come together, but sometimes they don't. I had one where they just wouldn't come together. Especially if it's 50,000, 60,000. I've had one that was 78,000. I did get that one put together, but it would make sense if it didn't, right? So a short appraisal is going to be another one. And the last one I'll touch on is if you accept an offer as a seller, you you accept an offer and it's contingent on the sale of that buyer's property, and that buyer's property never sells, and that person does not want to take out a bridge loan or pay cash, or maybe they don't have the ability to, your deal is going to fall apart, right? There, you don't even have an option. It just is what it is. And be aware too, this is a whole nother video, but when you take an offer as a seller, when you take an offer that's contingent on the sale of somebody else's home, legally, you're supposed to mark that in the MLS so that every other agent and every other buyer can see it. Well, if you're a buyer and you want to go look at 10 homes and you see that 9 of them are active and one of them says under contract with someone who's contingent on the sale of their home, are you going to want to go look at that one, knowing that you've got all kinds of hurdles and issues and questions and red flag? No, you're going to lose showings on that. So if you were getting 10 showings a week, now you're probably going to get 1, maybe 2, if you're lucky, right? Can you take a backup offer or take an offer that'll sit for 3 days and then all of a sudden it'll be in first place? Yes, if you've got what's called a kickout clause in your contract with your current buyer who is contingent on the sale of their home. A kickout clause generally gives you 3 days, 72 hours to either perform, like, hey, you got to tell me that you're good to go on your house, or if you can't, we're going to kick you out. It's called a kickout clause, and we're going to take this other offer, right? So you've got a kickout clause, but not everybody signs a kickout clause. So if you don't have a kickout clause and they got a 60-day window with you, you're stuck for 60 days. So you really want to make sure you get a kickout clause on that. Guys, there you go. There's 9 reasons that a deal can fall apart. Hopefully this isn't a video that you need. This is for entertainment purposes only, but it does happen. And the more you know, the more you can protect yourself. So hope you have a great day. Thanks for joining me. Again, we're here every single Friday at 11 o'clock with You've Got Questions, I've Got Answers, where we answer the biggest questions on the Treasure Coast. Guys, have a phenomenal Friday and an even better weekend. Take care.